amazing.
All right. I think it's time for us to get started. I think people have got their cup of coffee and they've got cabbage on the brain now. So we're going to kick off today's virtual field tour here at the Organic Seed Alliance Research Farm in Chimacum, Washington, where we're evaluating 50 different cabbage varieties that are from the French seed bank. We've been collaborating on this project in partnership with INRA, the Research Institute of France, which is located in one of the centers of origin of cabbage. Cabbage is a very, very old heritage crop in France. And our colleague there, Veronique Chable, when she graduated with a degree in genetics in the 80s, her first job was to go and collect seed from the farmers in the region of Brittany to put into the newly formed French seed bank. And this was being undertaken in the 80s because at that time, the cabbage production in France was moving more and more toward hybrids for uniformity, for shipping, for seed company development reasons, all sorts of reasons. The farmers were adapting hybrids. So in that process, a lot of the old heritage open pollinated varieties that had been managed by a farm or a village for centuries were being lost. And so that was an effort that Veronique undertook in the 1980s. And today, Veronique leads a participatory breeding and trialing network in France of cabbage farmers, among other crops, but cabbage is certainly one of the crops that they're working on, and cauliflower. And this participatory network is collaborating to evaluate those same accessions from the French seed bank that were collected in the 80s to preserve those varieties. The farmers coordinate the variety trials, they communicate with each other about what they like, and then each farm picks one to take to seed and harvest the rest. And so in this way, you have a network of 7 farms that are growing a cabbage crop, the trial that they're able to then harvest and sell. They're sharing information with each other, and they're each taking one of those heritage varieties to seed every year to reinstate those varieties into production and develop markets for them. And some of these cabbages are extremely beautiful. They come on at all different times. We have some we've already harvested this fall. It's September now. We have some that are just starting to head up that will likely be midwinter. We're going to watch them through the winter and see which ones hold over and have the longest longevity in the field. And of course, we're going to taste them. We've already started eating some of the fall harvested cabbages, and I have found they're extremely succulent and sweet. Not a really dense head. It probably wouldn't be a good storage cabbage, but for fall coleslaw, I've been enjoying them in my house. Katie, would you like to share any more information about the varieties you've been harvesting or the results you've seen so far?
Well, so far, like Mick said, these round cabbages are really crisp and tender. We just pulled these out of storage after only 3 weeks and they already had started yellowing. They're obviously not storage varieties. Some of them had popped open right before harvest. And we found, we're trialing these specific varieties, but the round ones we harvested were really sweet and juicy and succulent, and the cone-headed ones that we harvested were drier and had less sweetness.
I'll say a few things about them too.
Sure, come on in. So these varieties all have various French names. Many of them sound like a place name. I'm going to be embarrassed about my French pronunciation. Oh, she has a larger one. Mélan très hâtif de la Saint-Jean, rouge. We have different colors, different places. Go ahead, Lori. Do you want to describe them a little bit more? And share anything you've observed from the names?
I was just going to say, we actually worked with a lovely friend of ours who's from Brittany to try and figure out what the names mean in French, because she's a native French speaker and we are definitely not. And most of them are place-based. So we think that they're kind of essentially more of like landrace varieties. So a variety which is a variety or maybe a collection of different lines that have essentially been stewarded in a community or in a place. So a lot of them, like the ones Michaela just mentioned, I will just show you because I'm sure my French pronunciation will be way off.
Milan de la Saint-Jean.
There you are.
Milan pointu d'hiver.
Which means basically pointy winter cabbage from Milan, as far as I understand. So mostly it's a descriptive name of either the physical characteristics and or where it's from. So really we're growing all of these out to get to know them and to figure out what season they want to grow in. Do they want to be storage cabbages? Are they for overwintering? Are they more of perhaps a summer cabbage? When we got them, we got small samples of each one. So we had to hot water treat them because it's very important to be aware of phytosanitary issues and any seed-borne diseases that could be problematic. We live in an area that is really, really great for doing cabbage and brassica seed production. And we have a seed-borne disease in this area called blackleg or FOMA, which is a very crucial disease to control. We are actually under quarantine, so we're not allowed to bring in seeds that haven't either been tested and or treated. And since these cabbages came from France and we didn't get a big enough sample to send in for testing, we hot water treated everything before we planted it. And we are working with the USDA, sorry, not the USDA, the WSDA. We have put in an application for a field trial site. They have come out and done 2 evaluations so far, field inspections. They'll do 2 more. We have to do 4 evaluations throughout the season with them to ensure that we don't have any blackleg in our field and that we're not bringing it in any to the area. So seed-borne diseases are a critical and crucial element to be aware of, to know what's important in your area and to know what your control options are. So far, we haven't seen any. Everything looks great.
I would also add that these varieties, so the farmer network in France that is also working with these cabbages is in the area of Brittany. And they don't have blackleg in their area. So we felt a little more comfortable bringing the seed here, knowing that where the seed's coming from does not have a prevalence of blackleg. I would also note that the climate there is very similar to our climate. So we're excited to share the results back and maybe explore if there's an opportunity to collaborate in some selection and participatory breeding together. We also work on cabbage breeding as part of our Novik project, which I'm going to invite Lori to say a few words about. We've been breeding our own cabbages and collaborating on trials here in the Northwest for several years. So this is really an extension of that work too.
Yeah, we have been, I think we're on about our 5th year of breeding work. We've been partnering with Nash's Organic Produce over in Sequim to grow out a bunch of the material so we have a big field to choose from when we go out and look for plants that are what we want. And so we started the project by taking 2 varieties that have been really great workhorses and of interest to Nash's. We crossed them and then we've maintained 2 different populations. So one, they're called reciprocals. So one is parent A cross parent B, and the other one is parent B cross parent A. And that's looking for a purple storage cabbage. One of the things that's of strong interest, particularly here to the growers in our area and region, is finding particularly brassica material. Cabbages are really well suited to this area, so we have a lot of growers growing them. But we have growers who really want to grow open pollinated varieties and have some options there, and they're really difficult to find. There aren't a lot of open pollinated varieties available. So that's another thing that's very exciting for me about this material and looking at this French material and the partnership and collaboration potential there, is that if we find some material that does really well here, that meets the production and quality standards we're looking for, we might have some new variety potential. In particular, I want to show off this one that Katie was just touching. Maybe you can say it, Abba. You have better French than I do.
Illustratif de l'Angendique.
Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah. So this
Never
is
been to
one
Longjandique.
we actually have not evaluated it yet. We just harvested this head this morning to show you all. But it's really firm. It's really dense. It's not getting much disease. The plants are looking great. And so that's really interesting to me and to the growers in this area. And we're really excited to show and share with not only our French collaborators, but our regional and national collaborators as well, and see where it goes. So that's what it looks like on the inside. Some of the things we look for when we're evaluating and doing breeding work is the size of this core. We like a small core like this. That way you get more usable cabbage leaf. It's nice and dense. You don't have a whole lot of air in between the leaves, so you get a lot of usable cabbage to eat and enjoy. You want to give it a taste?
Sure. Do you want to show them all the other varieties too, Abba?
Yeah, we've also noticed, and we'll take you out for a walk in the field here in just a second, that there are a lot more of these pointed varieties in the trial, or this pointed material, and that seems to be something that's of strong market interest over in Europe and especially in the Brittany region. So it's fun to look at that because we don't have quite as many of those varieties here in the States.
It's very tasty.
It's good.
Actually, it's really
Very
good.
fresh.
Really good. Crunchy. A little bit of sweetness.
Yeah.
No off
So one thing that's great, we'll see if you can hear it. It's nice and crisp. It's got great texture. It's sweet. It's not super sulfury. That's a good cabbage. Well, let's go see what we can find in the field. Shall we?
Yeah, where do you want to go? Should I bring the...
Yeah.
Shall we? Okay. Are these in order? What's that one?
Yes, they are. So this is plot one.
And this is from Jean Marchal?
This is from Jean Marchal.
Okay. This is a variety that... Okay. This is a variety from Jean Marchal, a French farmer who attended the Organic Seed Growers Conference this year and gave us a sample of this seed. So this is a variety, he's one of the farmers in France as part of that participatory network. And this is a variety that he likes in particular and grows on his farm. Here's a nice head over here actually. A little bit flat, very dense, just coming on now. Very pretty head.
It's got a really nice pink blush.
Yep. A lot of diversity out here.
This is the other one from Jean Marchal.
This is De Lorient. De Laurent. You pronounce it for me.
De Lorient.
Lorient. This is another variety from farmer Jean Marchal.
Yes. Probably will come in a lot later.
This is a very large head. Look at that.
Wow.
There. I know. There's some food for you. Back when cabbage was vitamin C in the winter. Still coming on. Little, you can see there's a fair bit of diversity in the patch though. Some of them are breaking open. Some of them are much more diverse than others. As Lori was saying, they may be more like a, you want to cross over here? It may be more of a landrace.
Do y'all want to talk about the Phacelia plant breaks? Just so
Do you want to?
people know what they're looking at.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Lori.
so this is a plant called Phacelia. Sometimes you'll see it labeled as bee's friend. We use it a lot here on the farm. It's really amazing as pollinator habitat. It's got a lot of nectar. It's got a lot of pollen. It brings in a wide diversity of beneficial insects. We actually use it for two reasons. One, it marks between our plots. So if we also put flags in with plot numbers, but if those get lost, this helps orient us to where one plot ends and the next plot begins. And also we use it for natural beneficial aphid control. So one of the main predators of aphids, which love cabbage and love brassicas, are syrphid flies. And the Phacelia is very attractive to syrphid flies. So we use it to draw in our beneficial friends that help us do natural pest control. And it's beautiful and it smells good.
I was looking at this cabbage over here. I think this one is really beautiful too. It's one of the Savoys. Is this okay? Milan de Pontes.
I think it means pointy from Milan, maybe. Although these look pretty round.
Here's the name, Abba.
Milan du Pontois.
Pontois.
And the Savoid varieties tend to be more cold hardy. They actually have a little more room inside the head. They're not quite as dense. And the air pockets that those curly leaves kind of make when they naturally stack against each other actually will insulate the head during the winter and the cold months. So this is likely a variety that's an overwintering variety, or maybe even a late fall, early winter harvest.
Look at the one behind you. It's even more Savoid.
Yeah, and that's part of what we're learning is, that name, Milan
Nailed it.
Toi, really just means pointy from Milan. It doesn't tell us anything about what time slot and what kind of production cabbage this is. So, we didn't know that it was even Savoid until we grew it out.
Do you want to show them the purple one in the field? Because it's also very uniform, which is intriguing. And then maybe I'll go back and we can talk about the colors. Great.
Tardif de Langedic.
This one. Oh, this is the same. Yeah. This is the same one that we harvested, the red one that we just tasted.
Rouge-ratif de Langedic. Langendic. I think this might not be a French name, but it's maybe a place.
Okay.
Looks like more of a German spelling to me, but I'm not sure. I am not sure.
So this is the one we just looked at on the table. And a few things to note here. The plants are really healthy. There's a little bit of head rot, head disease, but it does not seem super widespread. There is some variability in head size. With an open pollinated variety, we expect to see more variability to a certain degree than we see in hybrid varieties, and that helps it be adaptable to wherever it's being grown. But we also need it to be reliable, right? We need to get a reasonable amount of uniformity, and these are great because we can look in here. Malcolm's going to help us out looking for pests. But when you cup your fingers underneath like this, and then a thumb on the head, and you kind of squeeze, and you can get a real sense of how dense and how ready these heads are. And we do see some aphids in here, but the nice thing is they're not doing a ton of damage. So that makes me wonder if there's something about these leaves. They look very waxy, that's protecting them. So this is one that I'm pretty excited about, and I want to get to know better. So let's head back up and we'll go talk to Michaela about collards. And I'm wondering if anybody has any questions about cabbage or cabbage breeding, and feel free to put them in the chat box and we will answer them to the best of our knowledge. So we'll just take a little walk back here and take a moment to ask your questions.
Do you want to talk about this one, Lori?
So this one is one that we harvested several weeks ago, and you're just seeing these little heads are secondary growth. You can see kind of the main cut was here, and this is actually a strategy for seed production, and I have never done it, but I have been told that if you cut that main head and then you let these secondary growths mature and bolt and flower, you'll actually get a more uniform maturity on your seed set. I've also known growers who will cut the head, dig up the root, and store the root over winter. I know they do this at Meadowlark Hearth in cold storage, and then bring them out and plant them in the spring and then the same thing will happen. You'll get these little buds, secondary growths, that will then turn into a really nice, beautiful, uniform, robust seed set.
We have a question from Kate Woods.
Great.
What would be the reason for such variance in density between plants?
That's a great question. I would guess mostly maturity. So if you go through and you squeeze those heads, kind of with that cup on the bottom and thumb on the top, I've noticed that when they're a little immature, that's when they feel kind of squishy, and you can feel the air in the head, and as they mature, they'll get denser. And now, as we said with the Savoy types, some don't get as dense as others. The purple cabbage, to me, is the most dense cabbage heads I've seen. I've not often encountered a green head, regardless of shape or type, that's as dense as the purple. So some of it's variety, some of it is going to be environmental, but mostly I'm guessing it's going to be the degree of maturity.
You all ready to look at some collards? Ava, you want to go on that side so they can see the collards behind me, maybe? All right. Still taking any questions about cabbages that you may have, but we're going to shift gears here a little bit. We like to share a collard variety trial that we're involved in this year. This is a project that is being organized and led by Seed Savers Exchange and INRA Wallace of Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. It is an effort to document, preserve heritage, culturally significant collard varieties, but also to reinvigorate the culture of cultural food pathways related to crops like collards. And so what we have is 18 different varieties that we're evaluating here at the OSA Research Farm. The project started in 2016, and one aspect of it, as I mentioned, is coordinating variety trials. So seeing how these varieties grow in different climates. There are 250 different farmers and gardeners involved in evaluating these collards this year. Not everybody is evaluating all 18. Some sites have the complete set, and then other sites are evaluating a subset. And all of that information about how they grew, is being shared through SeedLinked. SeedLinked is an online platform for collaborating and sharing variety trial results. So check out SeedLinked. It's publicly available, and you can actually go into SeedLinked and see the results of these trials as they're contributed by each trial site. So this is the first year that we're evaluating them. As I said, here in the Northwest, we have 4 sites that are participating in the trials. We have the OSA farm here, and Oregon State University Culinary Breeding Network in outside of Portland is also evaluating all of these trials. And then we have 2 farms in the Northwest. Both of these farms are managed by Black farmers. Ebony by Nature, managed by Melanie Edwards over on Whidbey Island, is evaluating all of these varieties as well. And also Mudbone Farm in Portland, Oregon. Mudbone has all of these varieties, and Mudbone is a very community-oriented, engaged, educational farm. So there are a lot of additional gardeners and farmers and chefs that will get access to looking at these varieties and tasting them. We're also excited this winter when we are harvesting them to do the culinary evaluation with Grace Love, a Black chef who's in our area. Grace makes an amazing soul food, and she's excited to taste all the collards with us. So we're excited to participate and see where the project goes. I would mention the Culinary Breeding Network is hosting an online virtual Eat Winter Vegetables festival session this winter, and I believe it's the week of December 14th is going to be all about collards. So we're excited to participate, collaborate with Lane Selman of Culinary Breeding Network and all of the farmers and chefs that are involved in these projects. So we have not harvested, we have not done the evaluations yet. As you can see, the trial is still fairly young. I anticipate kind of going into the winter. It'll be really interesting to see which ones sweeten up. But you can already see a lot of difference between the colors of the varieties. You can feel, I don't know if you can tell from the camera here, but some of them are much more tender than others as well. This variety here is Miss Annie Pearl. Many of the varieties have names that obviously are connected to whoever was the seed steward who managed the variety, who maintained the variety, who had a relationship with this variety over time. So this first one you're looking at right now is Miss Annie Pearl. There are 18 of them. I don't know if you want to see all of them. There will be trials results online and all of the names shared there as well. But this next one has a purple tone. Looks an awful lot like our purple sprouted broccoli, and it's called Old Timey Blue. The next couple, you can see again as we move along, there's some distinct visual differences so far. This next one is Wallace. It looks really large and robust. There's a little diversity in the population, some variability of a lighter green and white stem and this purplish stem, but a pretty vigorous variety overall. And this next one, we have a couple of varieties in here that have this lighter light green color, and they're also very, very tender. This is almost like I could imagine making a slaw out of it and eating it raw. This variety is Georgia. And the next one, wait, is that one? Is that 3? 1, 2,
4. I don't know, that's marked 3.
Yeah, I think you got them marked. There's 2 2s. It's okay.
I think there's 2 1s.
This one is Georgia Blue Stem. Okay.
So this was 4.
This is
5.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
Georgia
this is
Blue
nice.
Stem. And William Alexander. I'm going to name off the other varieties, and I can promise you we will take photographs of all of them to include in our variety trial report and we look forward to sharing the results of that with you. The other varieties in the trial include one called Fuzzies, Brick House Old, Green Glaze, White Mountain, E.B. Paul, Fuller Stroud, Yellow Cabbage, William Madre, NC Yellow, Vates, Tabitha Dicus, White Cabbage, Georgia Southern, Jerugan Yellow, and Champion. So as you can see, there's a lot of diversity in here, and a lot of these varieties have people's names attached to them, so certainly linked to some cultural history and personal connection to the seed stewards that have kept these varieties alive, and we're excited to share them. So with that, if we have any caller questions, please answer or ask us. I also just want to reiterate the project is being coordinated by our friends at Seed Savers Exchange. So you can certainly watch their website, learn more information about the background of the project, and more timely results. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Lori to talk about our third brassica crop of the day, purple sprouting broccoli.
Woohoo! All right, so purple sprouting broccoli is a crop that many of you know we here at OSA love. It's a crop that you plant in the late summer, so usually mid-August, anywhere from early August to I'd say early September. So what we've got right here is our breeding population. So we have been working on breeding an open pollinated variety that will be hopefully available commercially within the next 2 years. And what we've got here, again, we're using the Phacelia as a marker in between plots, and each of these plots is what we call a family. So all the plants within a block have the same mother plant, but they may have gotten pollen and pollinated, and fertilized by any number of other plants in the population. So by doing this, by having this family structure, it allows us to make genetic progress and make selections based on the genetics as much as we can. So when we make selections, what we're doing is we're essentially keeping plants that we like and discarding plants that we don't. But what we're trying to do to maximize the effectiveness of that and maximize the effectiveness of our breeding is figure out which plants are actually genetically superior. Which plants produce the most robust yields, have the best disease resistance, withstand the cold and grow through the winter, or just stand and hold through the winter. And the way we do that is to figure out how to sort of tease apart what we're seeing in the plant, how much of that is due to the genetics of the plant and how much of that is due to the environmental effects. So maybe one plot looks really good, and maybe when we laid down fertilizer, we laid down lime, there's just a chunk landed in that plot. And so we want to be able to see, is that plot looking good because it actually has really strong genetics, or is it looking good because it just had a good year in the field? So part of that is doing it over and over from year to year and looking at whether it's doing well and we're making improvements each year. And then also doing this, splitting it out into families. And right now, what you're seeing is everything looks pretty similar, which is what we want. We have been making selections for several years. I think we're on about our 5th or 6th year of selection. So this is looking really good. It's looking uniform, it's looking healthy, it's looking robust. These plants will stand here through the winter, and then depending on what our February looks like, we'll start seeing sprouts probably around mid-March sometimes. Depending on the year, we can get sprouts as early as late February, and usually we've got about 2 months. And varieties for purple sprouting broccoli come in 3 maturity slots. You have early varieties, mid-season varieties, and late varieties. So you have varieties that will mature first, and the one that has done well throughout all of our trials and over a number of years has been Red Admiral. That's been a great standard for us as an early variety. Mendocino has been our best mid-season, mid-maturing variety, and Bernarda has been the best late maturing. Those are all hybrid varieties, which are fantastic varieties, but if you save seed from those, you're probably going to get something that's pretty diverse and not necessarily exactly like the plants you saved from. So when you save from an open pollinated variety, the plants you get out of those plants that you save seed from will look like the ones you saved from. That was a little bit of a mouthful, so let me just say that again. When you save seed from an open pollinated variety, the plants that grow from that seed will look like the plants that you saved them from. When you save seed from a hybrid variety, there's a lot of genetic diversity in that, usually in the background, and the plants that you grow from that seed may look very different than the plants that you saved that seed from. So one of the other elements to growing really good purple sprouting broccoli here in the Pacific Northwest is hitting that planting time right. And it's really challenging to do. And one of the things that we do and our local growers also do is plant successions. So we transplant maybe in early to mid-August, and then we do another one in late August, early September. So we actually have another planting over behind Michaela between our cabbage and our corn that just went in about 3 weeks ago. And that's just a risk management. You know, if we lose one or the later planting is more cold hardy, then we're hoping we still have things to select from in the spring and the late winter.
If we have a very mild winter, the earliest plantings tend to produce a lot more, but if we have a hard winter, the more mature plants tend to get taken by the cold, and the less mature plants will still make not quite as much, but will still make sprouts in the spring.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the last few years we've been planting 4 different succession timings of the same varieties in order to see where that sweet spot is. And then we also did the same thing on how many different farms, Lori?
I think
4
4.
different farms, 4 or 5 farms in surrounding counties. And this is a project that was supported by the WSDA Specialty Crop Block Grant. WSDA, our partners that help promote local specialty crops in Washington State. So that project also included working with the growers to better understand the economics of purple sprouting broccoli. We have seen a vast increase in production of purple sprouting broccoli in our region because it's a crop that comes in a time of year which we call kind of the hunger gap, when there's not a lot else that farmers are harvesting in March and April, and their spring crops haven't quite gotten started yet. So it gives them income at a very important time of year, and local food diversity at an important time of year. But we're also trying to kind of figure out what the cost point, the marketing, the promotion, in order to ensure that they have a local following for that crop and customer base, because it comes at a time of year when we're also importing some brassica crops from California. But this is a local product, locally grown, and superior culinarily as well. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us this morning. We're excited to see you again tomorrow for our final virtual field day. We'll be talking about carrots. We'll show you some carrot seed production. We'll look at some really beautiful roots, and we'll talk about the projects we're working on there. So thank you so much. Stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.
bye, thank you. See you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. All about carrots.